Campbell's Football. Matt Stepp coming up from the DFW in Fort Worth. What's going on, Matt?
Kevin, man, what's up? How are you, sir?
Good to have you. Matt's one of our honorary members of the 956 Media Mafia.
Oh, it's a privilege. I wasn't sure if I was worthy of that honor. I love going down to the Valley. It's always it's one of my favorite places in the state to come visit, and I have a lot of respect for all the media down there and the level of football that's played in the Rio Grande Valley, and just the passion. It's a different game down there, and it's awesome. And myself and the entire crew at Dave Cambell's Texas Football, we've got a lot of love for the 956 for sure.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. You're an honorary member along with Justin and Spud over at our boys up in Corpus. So they just came on our show last week, so we were getting on our football.
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it. They did a great job. They did a great job. It was a good show.
Yeah, those are good guys. Did you catch the toilet paper virtual background? Did you catch that?
I did. I was gonna email them and ask them to send me a couple of rolls, but I found some at HEB last week, so we're good to go.
All right. How have you been, man? We were just talking a little bit about the quarantine life, and I think these days we're a little bit closer to normalcy than we were, these past couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, let's just get it out there. It sucks. We as human beings aren't built for this. This is not something that we're used to. And being in the media, like, we are, our business is a relationship business, and a lot of what we do is built on relationships. And so when you can't go out and shake someone's hand or go see someone face to face, it makes things tougher. And then you add in the fact that there's no sports to cover right now. It really makes it tough. So it sucks. It's not great. But I try to, like, I think I posted on Twitter last week, I'm not a very smart guy, and I try to listen to people who are smarter than me when it comes to things like this. And if they say it's best to stay home, then that's what I'm going to do. And so, we have local and statewide elected officials that make these kind of decisions, and they give us advice. And for a while there, they wanted us to stay home and only come out for essential things. And that's what I've done. And I know now things are starting to loosen up, and that's good. And hopefully, folks that are sick will get healthy, and folks that are healthy will remain that way, so that we can get back to some sense of normalcy, and most importantly, get these kids that we enjoy covering so much out back playing sports again, because that's especially high school sports, especially in a place like the Rio Grande Valley that doesn't have pro or major college sports from a football standpoint, at least. The high school team is kind of the lifeblood of the community, the high school football team specifically. So hopefully we can get back to that soon, because I for one, miss it a lot.
Definitely, and I actually made a trip up to Lubbock this last week. And, here in the Valley, they're not requiring people to wear masks as much, but I personally, my family and I've been wearing them. But just it's so different. Once we got past, Junction on out that way, was no one out there was really wearing masks. When we got to Lubbock, the people in the community, albeit it was empty because it's a college town, but, not a lot of people were wearing masks. It was different when I walked into the Torchies with a mask, and I was the only one wearing a mask outside of the coworker, the people who work there.
Yeah.
So it's been a little different, but as far as the normalcy, I think, yesterday I went to go visit Joe at a store in San Benito, and just the fact that we could get out of the house a little more, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've been working from home?
Yes. Yeah. I've been working from home at my day job, and for Dave Cambell's Texas Football, obviously, and all of us at Dave Cambell's Texas Football are working from home. And I think our operations staff is going back into the office starting on Monday. That's about half of our staff. The editorial staff, since we're so far along in the magazine preparation, we're just going to kind of finish working on the magazine remotely. And I believe the editorial staff, where most of us are coming back into the office on June 1st. So, like I said, working back to normalcy. And, you mentioned, the trip to Lubbock. I think that in itself kind of specifies how big our state is, and kind of there's a lot of unique challenges, because what's going on in Houston is not what's going on in Alpine or Fort Stockton, Texas, out in remote West Texas, or what's going on in Lubbock's different than what's going on down in the Rio Grande Valley. Texas is a big state, and in some parts of the state, there's not a lot of folks that are sick, and there's not a lot of folks, there's really not a lot of impacts with what they're doing, other than the schools are closed and the restaurants are closed, but there's not a lot of people sick. So Texas is, because of its size and geographic diversity, is a unique challenge, I think, when it comes to predicting and projecting what's going to happen with a virus that we don't know much about. So a little tangent there, but I think your trip kind of really signified the uniqueness and some of the challenges, good and bad, that our state presents.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was, I mean, the farthest west I'd been was, I went to San Angelo back when I was with the White Wings a couple years ago. You know, so I knew it was a drive, but man, Lubbock was, I think, about a 9-hour drive in the middle of God's country. So
yeah,
it was a different drive, but yeah, you know, that's a good point on just the size of the state. And, you know, here in Hidalgo County, you know, we have a lot of cases, you know, but, you know, as the more west we went, you know, I guess the population kind of spreads out a little bit, and, you know,
yep.
Cases aren't as bad there.
Yeah, no doubt.
But shifting gears, you mentioned you guys as a preview magazine. Tell us where you guys are at and what can you share with us?
So we are hard at work preparing the 2020 summer edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. That's the big one. That's the one that you want to go out to the stores and get. It's the largest football preview magazine in the world. It's a little touch point there. I mean, it'll be over 400 pages again, all color. Our whole crew, from the high school writers up to the college ranks, putting it all together, and our editors are doing it. You know, now the big part that our editors are doing now is taking all the data that we've done and putting it on pages, you know, and page design and making sure everything fits, and all the graphics and all the ads are done, and all that stuff. So the bulk of the prep work from a writing standpoint is done. Now it's more of a design phase at this point. So I believe we go to press the Friday after Memorial Day. So 2 weeks from Friday, I believe that's going to be the 29th is the day that we go to press. That's when we send it to the printer. It's not going to be in stores just yet, but it was when we send it to the printer. And then I believe on Monday, June 1st, we're going to reveal the cover of the summer edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, which is always a big deal. We're going to reveal the cover of the magazine on June 1st on Texas Football Today, which is our daily live show that comes on every day at noon on texasfootball.com and on our Dave Campbell's Texas Football Facebook page. So we'll reveal the cover then. And then I expect it to be going out to stores towards the end of June. It usually takes about, you know, from the time that we send it to the printer to the time it shows up in stores, usually about 3.5 weeks. But if you become an insider, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider, which you can sign up on our website for that, you get the magazine early and we mail it directly to you. So you don't have to go out to the stores and get it or anything like that. You can just have us mail it right to you, and it'll come to your mailbox at least a week or so early. That's our goal.
Sweet. With this whole pandemic deal, did it change the way you guys put the magazine together, or were you guys already ahead of the curve when this whole pandemic sweep?
So it didn't change how we prep the magazine per se, because it's a lot of individual work. It's not really something where we have to be together to work on it per se. So, you know, we each kind of do our own things. The one thing that I noticed was that our response rate from the coaches was a lot better. We got a lot better response rates this year. I think because coaches, quite frankly, didn't have a ton to do because they're sitting around and they don't have a lot going on. So we actually, for the first time in the 60 years of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, got 100% return rate from our 11-man questionnaires for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. So every UIL 11-man school in Texas turned in a questionnaire. And you would think, oh, well, everyone turns in a questionnaire every year. No, there's usually between 30 and 40 schools every year that don't turn a questionnaire in. And we got all of them this year. And I think in 6-man football, I think we had all but one. There was only one school out of all the UIL schools that didn't turn a questionnaire in. So we appreciate the coaches doing that. So that actually put us ahead of the curve when it comes to the magazine prep, because all the coaches turned in their info. We didn't have to go for it quite as much. So I personally wrote the Rio Grande Valley previews. So I'm excited. I got to write the Rio Grande Valley previews. You know, I've read up on all the Valley teams this year, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be a good year for Valley football this year.
Definitely. We'll get there. For the fans that are watching, we'll definitely talk some football. We'll get there here on our show. But before we do, you know, you're up in Fort Worth, and like you mentioned, how the state is just so big and how, different parts of the state were handling this deal. Uh, how did everything kind of unfold up there in the DFW? Down here in the valley, we had Los Fresnos. We were I want to say about a week away from girls high school soccer playoffs. The boy or they were about to start. The boys were a week away or 2 weeks away. Softball was starting districts. Some softballs had already started district. Baseball was yet to start district. But for us in the valley, Los Fresnos, they were the first school district to actually put sports on pause. And that was the first domino effect as far
Yeah.
as valley sports goes. Some coaches felt it was premature. We had some coaches on here thinking that maybe it was a little too early. They pulled the trigger too early. They wound up being right. But that same week, Los Fresnos and Harlingen South were supposed to open up district for softball. Harlingen and San Benito were supposed to play. They were scheduled up to play all the way up until Friday afternoon that day, until they put the season on pause. Was it sort of the same case for Fort Worth as far as teams deciding on when to put the pause button on the season?
Yeah, so honestly, I was pretty deep in magazine prep at that point. I had actually I took a week off. I had just gotten back from vacation in Jamaica, and when I came back, that's when really things started to happen. And I was about a week behind on magazine prep, so I was pretty tied up with all that. If memory serves, I think Dallas ISD may have been the first big district to kind of shut things down. And then, I think all the other districts kind of followed shortly thereafter. And then obviously the UIL came in and put a pause on everything at that point. So I held out a lot of hope that we would get to finish the spring sports, maybe with some modifications, that kind of thing. Honestly, it just wasn't to be. And when the governor ended up closing all the schools for the year, I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin, because in the UIL a couple of hours later came out and closed everything down. But I mean, I know the UIL, that was probably I think they've gone on record and said, well, this was the toughest decision they've ever had to make. And I know, knowing some of those folks at the UIL, it broke their hearts, because, obviously there's a lot of attention on football because it's the big money-making sport. But, the UIL tries to make a big deal out of all their championships. And then we sent Ashley Pickle, she's our digital writer. She went down to Edinburgh for the mariachi state championships. So the UIL tries to make a big deal out of every state championship, even ones that people don't think about, like mariachi or academics or one act play or band. They try to make it a big deal because it's important, and all the extracurricular activities are important. And so I know the UIL, that was really a tough decision. And it's sad to see, and I see on Twitter, all the senior nights that they're doing virtually and, things like that. And it sucks. I mean, it's really sad. And I know if I'm putting myself in those senior shoes, I'd be pretty heartbroken. It sucks.
Definitely. Yeah. In my opinion, I felt that, because I was out actually covering, we had a softball game on a Wednesday. Incarnate Word came down to San Benito because of their spring break. But that was the Wednesday when we saw the NBA put the season on pause. And I think that was the big attention getter and the big domino effect as far as the world of sports goes. Did you feel that same way, that the NBA pausing the season that night was the first major domino effect?
Oh, absolutely. And then I think all the other big sports followed right after that. I mean, within a day or two, everything was on hold. So yeah, obviously that was, and seems to be, that's kind of the way these things work with the bigger sports, the professional sports. And now, you're starting to see, I think Germany's soccer league is starting back up this weekend, and the Premier League, I think, is going to be starting up in June. I think you'll start to see them trickle in one by one. And I think, in the U.S., my guess is once one sport starts back up, the others will follow fairly quickly. So, yeah, I mean, the NBA, when Rudy Gobert, was tested positive, they stopped, they canceled that game literally while they were warming up. You knew something crazy was happening, and it's unprecedented. And yeah, that was the big domino effect as far as a nationwide sports thing goes.
We saw, I know, did you keep up with Major League Baseball these last couple of days? They mentioned that the league agreed to terms. Now it's just a matter of getting into the players union and having the players approve it. They're looking at an 80-game season, an extended playoff, and even having a universal DH. So Major League Baseball, I think, is probably the closest major sport here in the U.S. to actually getting back out onto the field. Were you able to have any thoughts on that, on baseball might be coming back soon?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing with baseball is they've got to work out with the union kind of what they're going to do as far as, because they kind of made an agreement already about a month ago, kind of on a splitting of revenue and I think a prorated salary for the players, where now things have changed and now the owners want to go back to the table and kind of renegotiate things, and the players aren't probably going to be with that too much. So I think that I think from a conceptual standpoint and an operational standpoint, baseball is probably closer. But they got to get all that CBA media player union things worked out that are way above my head as far as a negotiation goes. But I'm hoping everyone can see the big picture, because I think no one's going to make a whole lot of money this year, or as much money as they would normally. But I don't think average person on the street really cares about how that some players are only going to make $5 million instead of $20 million this year, or whatever the case may be. I think folks the optics of that may not be great if you have millionaires and billionaires fighting over hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. I just think the average person can't relate to that, and it's probably not going to be. So they just want to see their baseball being played. And I think you also got to think about the rank and file players in the union. I mean, not everyone makes Mike Trout money. So, the minimum wage players they want to play because they're not poor. They're not hurting for money by any means, but they're not exactly, making big time money where they can just not get a salary for the year and be happy. So I think there's a lot of things to work out, and hopefully they get it worked out. And, I like the idea of 82 game season with the divisions playing each other and crossing over, limits to travel for most teams. I don't think the Texas teams will fare real well on the travel because, they have to go to California for their games, even against the NL West, other than Arizona and Colorado. All those games are in California as well. So travel may be a little bit of a disadvantage for them, but I think overall, it's for the majority of the Major League Baseball that potential system works well.
Definitely. We're joined by Matt Stepp of Dave Campbell's Football Magazine here on Rural Sports Live. So when is your next trip to the Valley? Have you mapped that out yet, or do you know?
I don't have a date just yet. I try to make it down there once a year. I think once all the schedules are fully released, we're actually working on collecting schedules now. So we're working. Once all the schedules are released, then I start to plan things out and do all those kind of things. I love going down to the Valley for the football and the food and the people. It's a lot of fun. So I'll try to get down there again this year. We'll see. I actually went down there twice last year. People don't realize I went down twice. I went down in week 3 last year. And then I went down for the first round of the playoffs. I saw a doubleheader. I saw the Mission Laredo United overtime game at Tom Landry Stadium. And then I saw Weslaco and Los Fresnos in there. That's why I saw you down at Weslaco at that game, the Weslaco Los Fresnos game. So I got to go to the Valley twice last year, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it down again this year. It's just one of those trips that I got to make. One of our staff writers, Ishmael Johnson, who is one of our assistant editors, and he's the managing editor of Texas Basketball Magazine and the THSCA magazine that we put out. Ish has never been to the Valley before. And he is going down there this year, and I think he's going to try to make the Battle of the Arroyo game this year. So, because he asked, he's like, which game should I go to? And I was like, you got to go to the Battle of the Arroyo. That's the big one. You got to go to either that or the Tinaco Bowl. One of those two, you got to go. And so he's looking forward to it. So everyone watching, if you can send your Twitter restaurant suggestions to Ishmael Johnson, I know he'd appreciate it, because we told him plan on coming back about 10 pounds heavier than he did when he got down there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. If you're a first-time person in the Valley, I think Battle of the Arroyo is right up there.
That was my first game in the Valley. My first ever time in the Valley, I went down there, and it was in San Benito, and they had fireworks at halftime. There was a fireworks show at halftime that was pretty bonkers, and I was like, this place is awesome. I can live here.
Well, get this. Just a couple years ago, they after every softball win, they would pop fireworks too.
And San Benito does it big. They had tailgate parties, and people were offering me tacos, and I was like, heck yeah, more food, just bring it on. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, shout out
and
to
plus, and my boy Manny Gomez at Harlingen. The Cardinals are undefeated when I see them play. They're like 6-0. So Manny, if you get your booster club to fly me down every week, maybe Harlingen goes 16-0 and wins a state title. I mean, clearly I'm the difference. I'm the reason why they've been winning all these games when I show up. So Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know. I was talking to Randy Bermea just earlier, and actually, matter of fact, Bermea, Kevin Ledesma, Charlie Powers, Daniel Ramirez, and Omar Hunter. They're actually joining us on the 5 o'clock show.
All right.
So they're going to talk some 2011 Cardinal football. So that's going to be a treat for the fans later.
I was at that game against Abilene at Heroes Stadium in San Antonio. That was the first time I ever saw Harlingen, and they won that game. So they're 6-0 when I show up. Just saying.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? But yeah, so talking about the RGV and the teams you've covered, I know you've seen a lot of Valley football, but what are the more dominant teams that you've seen in your time down here in the Valley?
So the 2011 Harlingen team is the best one that I've seen out of the Rio Grande Valley, top to bottom. That team really had it all, and that team could have easily been a state semifinalist. I mean, if they don't turn the ball over against Madison in that quarterfinal game at Kingsville, they were right there in that game. They could have easily won that game. To me, that was the best top to bottom team that I've seen. And I'm not that old, so I know Harlingen's had great teams in the past. I know Mission back in the day had some great teams. I know Edinburgh's had some great teams. That kind of thing. I was just a kid, so I didn't get a chance to watch those teams play. And I did hear about them, through following high school football on a statewide level. But for me, the one that I've seen in my own eyes is 2011 Harlingen. San Benito had a really good team 2 or 3 years ago, and they had Ty Hunter, and they had that really good crew. That was a really good team. And then Mission Vets a couple of years ago, Landry Gilpin's senior year, the one that went to the quarterfinals. I was at that famous game against Corpus Christi Vets. They won at the Alamo Dome. Had a great post-game interview with David Gilpin then. So that was a great 5A team that I saw. And then when I was younger, I did get a chance to see Port Isabel, one of their great teams, and they played Marlin, I think it was, in the state semifinals. Maybe in 03, I think. And Marlin ended up winning. I think Marlin ended up going to the state championship and losing. But that was a great smaller school Valley team, was that Port Isabel team that lost in the state semifinals. I saw them against Marlin.
Yeah, and that's the conversation. Because if you've been keeping up with our quarterback madness, the bracket we've had, the one thing that we talk about is the quarterbacks that were on those teams was Gilpin from a couple years ago that went 4 deep. Kevin Ledesma on that 11 team, they went 4 deep. Isaiah Martinez, Port Isabel, that went 4 deep. And then Eric Reta was the quarterback of that 2017 team you were talking about earlier. When it comes to the Valley, when we talk how good are these teams, and we'll say, are they 11 Cardinal good? Are they 2012 Tarpon good? But that's just kind of the bar that we have here when we start comparing teams. And all those teams you mentioned are exactly the teams that sit up there in Valley lore as far as some of the greats. What about one of the crazier games you've covered down here?
So the 2018 game between Mission Vets and Corpus Christi Vets at the Alamo Dome, that third round playoff game, that was just crazy. I mean, it was a big game, and Corpus Christi was favored in that game. They were undefeated. They had a great team. Take nothing away from the Eagles. That was a really good team, and it just shows you how good Mission Vets was, because they beat them. They beat a great team that night, and it was a shootout to begin. For most of the game, it was a high scoring game. Both defenses it wasn't bad defense. It was more great offense in that game. And Landry Gilpin just had that was, to me, that was the game, because we were talking, we start doing our Mr. Texas football voting. We start to kind of narrow the field down right when the playoffs start, and Landry was kind of one of our semifinalists and kind of in the mix. But we were like, hey, we want to see what he does in a big game against an out of Valley team. We want to see how he performs and if he stacks up. And to me, that game, I called Tepper that night after I left the stadium. I said, this guy's Mr. Texas football. I mean, he's the guy who deserves it. I mean, he had like 700 yards of total offense that day and really did a great job. And I thought it was a cool thing that we were able to recognize a player in the Rio Grande Valley for that prestigious award. So I think as far as crazy games goes, that's probably the one that's up there. One that's a little underrated is that Brownsville-Hanna Brandeis game. In the third round of the playoffs a couple of years ago, I thought Hanna should have won that game. They kind of let it slip away late, but that was a great game. There's been some fun regular season games too. I mean, the Harlingen-Abilene game was great. When Hanna beat Amarillo-Tascosa at Ferris Stadium that same year in 2018, I was at that game. That was a big upset. I mean, people forget that Tascosa team won Region 1 that year. Now, granted, they made some changes after that. I think Hannah kind of exposed some things, and they made some changes after that and really got hot. But that was still a great win for a great Brownsville Hannah team as well. So I'd say from a top games perspective, those are probably the four, 2 playoff games and 2 regular season games that really stand out in my head as far as the best games that I've seen personally in the Valley.
Definitely. Well, Brandon Estevez graduated this year. He's set to graduate, so he made the All-Star list. And I remember that what people were telling me was that he single-handedly took over that Tascosa game a couple of years ago, and just how
they couldn't block him. They couldn't block him. He was unblockable that game. He was and Ken Plunk, the head coach in Amarillo Tascosa, said he told me, he goes, we watched film and we knew before the game we were going to have trouble blocking him, and we just couldn't block him. And he wrecked that game.
Wow. Yeah, he wound up finishing with 6 different first-team All-States.
Yeah.
So
he was a special player.
Absolutely. And then Victor Campos graduated this year, so that majority of that 2018 team is now graduated. Sticking with high school football here in the Valley, tonight we're expected some big news. We're expecting Port Isabel to name a new AD head coach. We'll start off there. Matt, what can you share with us that you know so far on the coaching situation with the Tarpons?
So, I mean, I know it's been an interesting process for Port Isabel, and I think, it's one of those things where it's not a unique thing to Port Isabel, but in a lot of small towns, you have people in the community who are trying to influence things and get their guy in and do this and do that behind the scenes, and it's something that I think is not great. It's like I said, it's not a unique thing to Port Isabel or the Valley, but I think a lot of times in the Valley, there's more of that goes on in that particular area than anywhere else. I mean, they have a name for it. It's called the compadre system, right? So I think you have a lot of factors involved where people are working behind the scenes and trying to do this and do that to get their guy in. I think at some point you got to let the people that you've voted in or hired to do those jobs without that undue influence from the community. I mean, you elect a school board to do a job, so let them do their job. The school board is tasked to hire a superintendent, let the superintendent do their job, and stop trying to influence so much behind the scenes and get your guy in there, or if it's a girls coach a girl, whatever the case. In this case, it's a guy, so doing that. So I think, there's been some good candidates that applied, but I think sometimes a lot of the stuff going on behind the scenes rubs people the wrong way and turns people away from applying for what should be one of the better jobs in the Rio Grande Valley. My anticipation is they're going to probably, hire an old face. So I'll just say that, someone who's been around before. If you can kind of read between the lines there, that's my guess. It's Wednesday at 3:30. The board meeting is tonight. My guess is they're going to bring in an old face, and I think he'll do a good job. I just wish that the folks in town would just let the people that they've hired or elected do their job instead of trying to shoehorn their guy in. It's like I said, it's not just a Valley thing, but I think you see more of it concentrated in the Valley a lot of the times, and it comes up with some. But the problem with that is you get your guy in there, and then you're a person in the community who has influence, and then you lose influence, and now all of a sudden your guy may have done a great job, but because he's not that person's guy, they run him off, and then they have to do this whole rigmarole all over again. And you've seen that in Port Isabel since Stump left. They've had a lot of turnover because people behind the scenes keep trying to pull those levers and pull those strings behind the scenes, and it's just resulted in a lot of turnover. I think if this would be their 4th head coach in like 6 years or something. So that's not the kind of thing you want to have. That kind of instability is what over time kind of chips away at a great program. Instability will be one of the first things that ruins a consistent winner. And you look at the teams that win in the Valley, or across the state, most of the time there's continuity in the program, and when they have success, the success breeds success. But when you start bringing in different guys all the time, and you start running through a lot of different coaches, and the kids start getting different messages, it just messes everything up, and it slowly kind of chips away at a quote unquote empire that you've built.
And another thing about, we saw both Donna North, they went ahead and hired head coaches. Port Isabel's next on the list. Just talking with some coaches here in the Valley, they feel that, now is a very uncertain time to be applying for a job because we don't know when these coaches are going to see their kids. How are these coaches going to take on that challenge? And, it's a really difficult time. Do you feel the same way as far as a coach applying for a job and going into this road of uncertainty?
Yeah, it's I think it's prevented a lot of guys who would apply for jobs are not applying for jobs. They don't, because of the challenge that you can imagine going in. It's tough enough to be a new head coach at a new school, but then you factor in what's going on where you can't see your kids personally. You have to meet with them on Zoom. You don't get a chance to see what they can do. You don't have off season. You don't have 7-on-7. Right now you don't have summer strength and conditioning at the moment. There's a lot of basically what you're hoping is maybe you get a month in the summer to work with them and do strength and conditioning, and then August 3rd rolls around and you're starting practice and trying to install a new system, hire your coaching staff, learn the kids. It's just a lot of challenges that a lot of guys just aren't willing to take right now. And the guys that are taking on those challenges, it's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of sleepless nights for those guys trying to figure out what they're going to do. The biggest thing is they want to have a season, and we all want to have a season, and that's the number one thing. But then when you get to, hey, we have a season, now the hard work comes in because you got to try to figure out how you're going to implement your system and get everything done that you need to get done so you're ready for your season opener and then eventually district play. So I think what you might see, especially, if we start the season on time, which I think we will. I'm hopeful there. When we start the season on time, some of those teams that have new coaches, I wouldn't read a ton into their early season results. I would kind of wait for a couple of weeks and see how they progress, because it's going to take a little bit of extra time for those teams with new coaches running new systems to kind of get acclimated. You might see some ugly results and some less than stellar play in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, but the hope is by district play, those teams are ready. So really, if you're have a new coach, what you're hoping for is to be in a 16 district. So you've got those 5 non-district games to kind of work up to things. The problem for Port Isabel is they're going from a 14 district, I believe, to an 18 district. It's 7 or 8. It's because they're combined with the Corpus schools. It's 7 or 18 district. They're going to have less time to get ready for those important games. Is it a 7 or 8?
Yeah, it's an 8. Yeah.
So you got 3 non-district. So you got 2 scrimmages and 3 non-district games, and then a bye week, and then you're in the middle of district. So and those games are the ones you want to win. Those are the games that count, because those are the games that can keep you out of the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting because Port Isabel, you've got a guy who's going to get hired tonight and who's not going to have a chance to meet with his kids until hopefully sometime this summer. And they've only got a short amount of time. I think Port Isabel would probably rather have been in that 4-team district or 5-team district. They have a couple of extra non-district games to kind of work the kinks out, so to speak.
Yeah, that was my next topic, was about the realignment. What were your thoughts, when you first saw the realignment in the Valley? We can start there. 16-4A D2 and PI, and Rio Hondo, Raymondville, the district they're being thrown into with West Oso, Ingleside, Robstown, Rockport, Fulton, Sinton. That's brutal.
Tough district. Yeah. That district, we kind of felt like that was going to happen just because Progresso had dropped down to 3A. So it only left 3 teams in Division II in the Rio Grande Valley. So you can't have a 3-team district. So the most logical thing is to send them up Highway 77 into the Corpus Christi area. And it's a tough district. I think Sinton and Rockport Fulton are both, good programs that have been successful recently. Sinton had a down year there after Coach Allen got sick, but they brought in an alum and Coach Mike Troutman, who came from a successful program at Klein Collins as an assistant. He's a Sinton alum, and he got them turned around real quick. Sinton had a good year last year. So looking at that, you think Sinton and Rockport are among the favorites, but I think Raymondville is going to be right there in the mix as well. And I expect Rio Hondo. I think Rio Hondo's got a little more experience coming back. They were kind of young last year. So I think they'll be right there in the mix as well. You look at a team like West Oso, they don't have a head coach right now. Their head coach just resigned or retired a couple of weeks ago. So they're without a head coach right now. So that's going to hurt them a little bit this late. I think you'll see, I think you're going to see the 4 playoff teams be, Sinton, Rockport, Rio Hondo, and Raymondville. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's a good guess. Raymondville, they're going to have Zaravion Armendara is coming back for his senior year. Dylan Ramirez off the edge. He's going to be coming back. And then, Jason Cantu, another athlete they have there. What district stood out to you? I feel personally, for me, when I first saw it, was the new look 5A, 32-5A, with
the Division I district with the Wessico East and the McAllens. Yeah. So that's so with those 4 teams dropping, we kind of felt like the Valley would lose a 6A district, because they had 3 districts, but one of them was a 16 district, which I know everyone hated. but you take 4 teams out, and now all of a sudden there's not enough teams to fill 3 districts. So you kind of figured they were going to lose a district, which is what happened. And those 4 teams moved down into 5A Division I and really create a really deep and tough district there with because they're joining. I think Palmview is going to be strong next year. I think Donna is going to be much improved. I think Brownsville Vets is going to be much improved. And you add in the 4 6A drop downs, it really makes for a tough district. And Region 4 in 5A Division I, I think I teased this on Twitter. I think it sets up really well for a team like Weslaco East to win the region. And I'm being dead serious here. I think Weslaco East is one of the 2 favorites to win Region 4. And I think they could legitimately play at a state semifinal. You look at the setup at Region 4, I think Weslaco East, Corpus Christi Vets, Corpus Christi Flower Bluff, and McAllen Memorial are the 4 favorites in the entire region. I think any of those 4 teams could win the region, and I think your two top teams are Corpus Christi Vets and Weslaco East. McAllen Memorial has a tradition of winning. They lose a really good senior class, but I think that tradition combined with dropping down was going to help keep them among the elites. And I think there's a greater than 0 possibility. It's a lot has to go right, but I'd put it at 10-15% that you could see a Weslaco East McAllen Memorial regional final played in round 4 of the playoffs. And to me, if that happened, that would be the biggest game in Rio Grande Valley football history. If you had an all Rio Grande Valley regional final at the Class 5A level. I think it's a 10 or 15% chance, but I think that's better than it's ever been before as far as chances the Valley has for something like that to happen.
Hey, you heard it here first. There you go. That's D1. Then you go down to take a peek at D2, and you have the 2 juggernauts there, both Pioneer and Mission Veterans. How did that district shape up in your opinion?
So I think they've got a tough. The problem for that district is the bi-district round is really tough. You're going up into San Antonio in the first round of the playoffs, and some of those first round matchups, because you got to remember 5A Division II, the Corpus Christi area doesn't have a district anymore. All those teams either dropped to Class 4A or moved up to Class 5A. So there's no Corpus Christi. There's not a single team in the Corpus Christi area in 5A Division II. So you bypass that and go right up to San Antonio, where you're playing, Kerrville Tivy, Alamo Heights, some really good teams up there. So the bi-district round is going to be tough. I think if you can get out of the bi-district round, you can make a little bit of noise. And I think Pioneer and Vets have what it takes to do that. Obviously, Pioneer, I saw them last year in the regional semifinals against Bernie Champion. And I think, Pioneer, if Eddie Lee Marburger doesn't get hurt, maybe they find a way to pull that game out in overtime. But, in overtime, he was basically playing on a broken shoulder. I mean, kid is a warrior. He impressed us so much with his heart in that game. But Bernie Champion made the plays, especially on defense, to win that game, that big game, because Pioneer probably should have won that game. They were driving late to either kick a game-winning field goal or go in for a touchdown, and a kid for Bernie Champion makes a great interception and basically saves the game for him. So, but I think Pioneer, what they have coming back, they've got some holes to fill, especially in the secondary and on the defensive side of the ball. But I think offensively, with Eddie Lee Marburger back, they're going to score points. They're going to move the football. And I think Mission Vets, that they're always in the mix. AJ Gonzaga is one of the most underrated players in the state of Texas. And I think getting him back to wide receiver, his more natural position, will really help the Patriots kind of be that explosive offensive attack that we expect to see. And then you look at it, I think Mercedes and Ed Couch-Elsa, I think Ed Couch is going to continue to improve, and they're going to be kind of right there in the mix as well. Any
other districts that stood out to you in the Valley?
I'm interested also in 32-6A. You move Weslaco over to 32-6A, and I think that makes – I think that there's a lot of balance in 32-6A. I think Weslaco's the favorite. I think Weslaco and Harlingen are the 2 favorites, and I give Weslaco the edge at the moment. But I really expect the battle for those other 2 playoff spots to be really contested, because Los Fresnos brings a lot back. San Benito is going to be San Benito. Harlingen South is rapidly improving as well. So you've got some really good teams. And I think Hannah's a little bit underrated. I think they lose their 2 stars, but I think they've got a lot of young pieces in place where I think they have a chance to be better as well. So that district will be fun to watch. And then 31-6A, I think you got Vela and Mission at the top. I think Vela may be top to bottom, probably the best team in the Valley. If you just took, just pure team and said, hey, who's the best team in the Valley? I think Vela is probably the best team in the Valley overall. And I think Mission is not far behind, and Mission's going to be really good as well. But I think after that Edinburgh district is, those Edinburgh schools always kind of beat up on each other, and they're always really evenly matched. And you got to get crazy tiebreaker scenarios out to kind of figure out who's going to make the playoffs in that district. So I think those last two playoff spots in 31 6A are going to be really hotly contested. And one more thing, I'll say this. Don't count out Rio Grande City in District 15 5A or the 14 5A Division 1. They're kind of on an island going up to San Antonio and Eagle Pass, and a lot of travel in that district. I think Rio Grande City is still going to be in the playoffs next year. I expect them to get one of those top 4 spots and be in the playoffs as well.
Definitely. Excuse me. Definitely. Before we go, do you feel, you mentioned earlier, do you feel that football is on pace to start on time?
I'm hopeful. If you put a gun to my head, which please don't, but I feel like we will start. I think August 3rd practices will start. I'm really hopeful that the coaches and kids can get to the schools before then and get 4 to 6 weeks of conditioning in. But if they don't, it is what it is. You got to remember, back in the day, we didn't have summer strength and conditioning programs. People think about summer strength and conditioning now, but back in the day, as late as like the mid 90s, there really wasn't a formal summer strength and conditioning program. A lot of times when kids would leave on the last day of school, you wouldn't see them again until the first day of two-a-days the next year. And coaches found a way to get those kids ready to play. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. There was probably a lot of throwing up and a lot of conditioning drills, but they got them ready to play. It won't surprise me. I think coaches will figure it out. It's not optimal, but you'd be surprised at what the coaches can get done with just a little bit of time, and what young teenage bodies that are in shape, how quick they can bounce back and get into shape. So hopefully they'll get some time beforehand. But I do think on August 3rd we will see football and volleyball practices starting up.
Definitely. Before we go, Matt, any shout outs you want to give out to anybody, maybe here in the Valley or family tuning in?
No, really, just everybody in the Valley. We love you guys down there. We Dave Cambell's Texas Football. We are Rio Grande Valley fans. We appreciate the brand of football that's played down there. And I know you guys don't get all the respect that you probably deserve, but you definitely have it with the Dave Campbell staff for sure. And like I said, if you want to get the magazine mailed to you, just go to texasfootball.com and hit subscribe. And you can sign up to be an insider, and we'll mail you a magazine to the house. You don't have to go out and try to fight the crowds at the store looking for the magazine.
Definitely. What's your Twitter in case some folks aren't following you just yet?
So if you're not following me on Twitter, it's at Matt_Stepp817. That's Matt with 2 T's, Stepp with 2 P's. You'll get a lot of high school football stuff. You might get some bad food opinions, and when baseball season starts, you'll probably hear me complaining about my Baltimore Orioles.
Definitely. That's always a for sure. So we're joined by Dave Campbell's Texas Football's Matt Stepp, and again, an honorary member of the 956 Media Mafia. Matt, thanks for joining us on the show. I know you got a busy schedule. Thank you for cutting out some time out of your day to come on with us.
No, anytime, Kevin. Appreciate what you guys do in the Rio Grande Valley, and hopefully we'll run into you in a press box here sooner rather than later.
Hopefully. Matt Stepp, everybody. Later today at 5, we're going to be joined by Daniel Ramirez, Kevin Ledesma, Omar Hunter, Randy Bermea, all going to be joining the show, and Charlie Powers of the Harlingen Cardinals from that 2011 team. We're going to be talking some more football today and some Cardinal football later today at 5 here on Real Sports Live. So, Matt, again, stay home, stay safe. Good catching up with you guys. We'll see you.